There we go.
Well, firstly, and thank you, committee, for attending the Town Centre and Events Committee the 2nd of February, our first meeting of this penultimate 2001 year, which brings us to the agenda, which is apologies for absence. I've received...
So Robin, just to confirm that there aren't any members of the public first,
okay,
so we can carry on.
I presume there wasn't, because you didn't say there wasn't before we went on air. There's no members of the public there.
No, carry on. I was just making sure that's in the minutes.
No, that's good. I presume there wasn't, because we hadn't had any before we went on air. So anyway, apologies for absence. I had a brief conversation with Councillor Donoghue today, and she is recovering slowly. She's obviously still very weak from COVID, but we look forward to her coming back and joining us. But on the good side of it, she had read the agenda and she had told me some things that she thought about. So that is encouraging, and she told me off. So so that's a good sign that she's on the mend. So long may she return to our meetings. We've also received apologies from Councillor Charlie Clare and Councillor Tim Mills. Has there been any others, Nina?
No, that's it.
Well, thank you for that. In which case, we'll move swiftly on to the minutes of the last meeting, which went to council, but we need to agree them. Councillor Margaret Donoghue, Margaret Gately.
Thank you, Chair. We've got just a typo on TCE minutes 870.20. I think, Nina, I did email you this prior to full council when they went through, but it still seems to be there. It's rather an embarrassing typo. Instead of public, there's no L in it. And I just felt for the record it should be public.
Well, thank you very much for that, Margaret. I'm dyslexic. I didn't see that. So
I spot all it. Unfortunately, I think I'm the polar opposite, and I spot the slightest things. And it's not always a good thing, Robin. So
no, I'm pleased you're there. I'm really grateful. Was there anything else to concern with those minutes, or can we agree them as a fair record?
Yeah, I agree.
I'll give everyone a minute, because sometimes it takes time to actually just glance through what you've remembered. I take that they're fine then, if that's all right. In which case, with members' agreement, we'll move on to the action list, which is attached. Is there any questions on the action list?
They're all for further meetings, isn't it?
Well, they're all sort of further updates. I only make one comment. I'm not sure whether it was done. It's not on the action list, but we agreed a press release over the Town Centre manager. I don't know whether that's gone out yet, or whether it's due to go out. Perhaps the town clerk can tell me. We wasn't going to send it out straight away.
It's drafted. We've got a quote from you, and it's going out this week.
Thank you very much. I think that was a big move by the committee and the resources committee to put that post in place, and we are honoured today with our new Town Centre manager being present in the meeting. Emma, can we give her our congratulations on her role?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. In which case, I'm doing paper and screen here, so we'll move swiftly on.
Hang on, Robin, I've got 2 points.
Okay, so I did say, and then I didn't see your hand. I do apologise, John.
Okay, 2 points. One is I'm wondering, in terms of the Bard, whether we ought to be considering having a online meeting. Otherwise, poor Dean is kind of carrying on and soldiering on as Bard. And I'm wondering whether we should be organising some sort of online event to elect a new one.
Can members discuss that and see where we feel is appropriate?
Just a thought, really. I mean, I'm not saying we should resolve it today, but maybe we could ask the events coordinator and/or the town clerk to prepare a report for the next meeting. Decide on that. Maybe consulting with Dean en route.
I think you do raise a pertinent point, Councillor Harvey, that it is unfair. We are really appreciative of the work Dean's done. I noticed he posted another poem today.
Yeah, he's very prolific, and all power to his own.
And he keeps working away. Can we agree that is an action for the office to discuss with Dean, and not make that decision here, because the last thing we should do is make a decision about a man while he's still working for us. It should be in cooperation with him. Is that
in the spring. Right. Yeah.
That's what I'm suggesting. Is let's not just wait for when things are back to normal. Let's take action here.
Yeah, I think that should be with the officers and Dean, and then they'll come back and tell us how we're going to go forward.
The second one I want to raise is about the Good Endings Fair. It's got the deadline review date as being September, but that, of course, matches when we've said we might be doing it. I wonder, therefore, whether we should review it perhaps at maybe the next cycle of TCE and decide whether we're going to be going ahead with it or not. Know a little bit more by then as to whether things will be back to near enough normal in September. Next meeting is what, in 8 weeks' time or something?
Before I comment on that, has anybody else got any comments on that? Councillor Mari.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with Councillor Harvey. I think we should review it because of the situation we are in at the moment, and the number of people who unfortunately have passed away, and it could be a sensitive area anyway. So yes, can we review it later on?
Well, can I leave it that it does say that it's under review in the action list, and it will be kept under review. So it is being reviewed. Can we leave it that, depending on information available, circumstances predicting, we can leave the town clerk and the committee clerk to bring that back to committee at the most sensitive and appropriate time in the future. We don't want to over egg it, and I see Amanda's finger going up, waving at me. So let's see what Amanda's got to say.
Okay, do you not want the events coordinator to bring it back?
Yeah,
that's what I said.
He didn't.
Yeah. Yes.
I said Amanda.
You said committee clerk, Robin, but don't worry.
No, did I not?
Events coordinator to bring back. Yeah.
I do apologise, Amanda. That wasn't meant that way. It is under review, and we have talked about it, period. But we have to respect the sensitivity around these things, as we all recognise. So take it as read, John. No one wants to not have the event. We just want to have the event in good grace. I'm
simply saying that we don't know what the arrangements will be with regards to social distancing. We can't have an event in the town, in the community hall, while people are still not able to be out in a meeting room together. So that's the reason for suggesting that we review it at the next meeting.
That's why Amanda will bring back something. We'll move on if that's okay. Amanda will bring us something back. The committee clerk and Amanda and the town clerk will review this, and the events coordinator's got these matters under complete review. And I can assure you that at the right time, Amanda will put it on our agenda with all the appropriate information to support it. So in which case we move on to item 5, which is the town clerk, which is it's under the deputy town clerk, but the deputy clerk's not here. So I'll pass that to the town clerk, which is the COVID update.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So obviously in the office, we know as much as anybody else about COVID and what's going to happen in the next few months and the rest of the year. So we're proposing that for the events which were to come next, that we don't go ahead with the pancake race, food fair, spring fair, probably May Day, and that we postpone the rededication of the War Memorial to 2022, as stated in the paper.
Thank you. Has the events coordinator got anything to say on that? Because obviously she was involved in the discussions.
Yeah, no, I'm quite happy for us to go ahead and cancel the ones that are recommended, because the pancake race would have been next week, and obviously we're still in lockdown, and food fair's scheduled for the end of February. I'd imagine we'll still be in lockdown, so yeah, I'm happy with that.
Thank you. In which case, we'll take that as read. There's some elements in that report which members would have read about the TIC and shop mobility, which town centre elements. Obviously, I would imagine that as soon as that's theoretically possible, we will be opening tourist information and shop mobility.
Oh.
That is as read, I would believe, but we need to note that in the report that the comments are there. We must say, if we can record in the minutes our continuous thanks for the office for what they're doing, which is working shadow boxing, really, where we go with stuff against the regulations and circumstances, and we must record our thanks for all the team and what they've done. Which brings us on to item 6, if members are happy to go that way, which is going to be taken by the town clerk, which is the rural markets town element. Town clerk.
Thank you, Chairman. So councils will remember that the town councils joined the Rural Market Towns Group over a year ago, and we've had reports back. As you see in the correspondence, I've had an invitation to join their advisory clerks panel. It wouldn't be a massive time commitment, and it would be a good way of promoting Buckingham and networking in a bit with what's going on around the country, especially with work we might want to do around the town centre in the future. So I'm proposing that I take part of that in that, as long as members are happy.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the committee, any discussion about that?
No, go ahead.
I did check with the town clerk about the time commitment, and as he says, it's not going to be that. But we must be pleased that Buckingham town clerk's going to be in a mover and shaker in this. And I notice Councillor Margaret Gately's hand up, and I'll take Councillor Gately.
Thank you, Chair. I'm fully supportive of our town clerk being fully involved in this. I think it's an excellent thing. Obviously, at the moment, we're talking about virtual meetings, but if it reaches when it reaches the point where people can meet face to face again, would you anticipate a long journey, or is it or will it still be possible to meet virtually even when it's no longer vital?
I honestly don't know, and at the time I'd have to take judgments based on what else was going on in terms of travel. It's going to be a massive shock to the system when we start having to go to meetings in Aylesbury, never mind anywhere else, to be honest.
Can we agree with your agreement, Margaret, that town clerk will bring back and we'll review that when circumstances hopefully return to normal one day, or as close to normal as we're ever likely to be, and as the town clerk, he best knows his time availability, and he does have a team of officers beneath him if it's a matter of attending. I think it's an officer-led thing, not a councillor-led thing, so we'll be guided by his actions.
Yep.
Great. Thank you very much. Which brings us on to item 7, bounce back. I'm going to let Amanda lead on that, please, as events coordinator.
Okay. As it says in the recommendation, it's recommended that the committee agree the list of projects in principle, subject to a costed proposal being agreed by a subsequent meeting. There's £10,000 that has been earmarked for bounce back events, and we've got some proposed activities listing on the report, and we've also would like to use some of that money to add to the Fringe Week budget.
Members?
Yeah, agree.
Agree.
Okay, and Councillor Christine Strain-Clark.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yes, I'm totally in favour, but I just wanted to ask about the otter sculptures. How robust will they be? I mean, I see they're fiberglass. So there's 2 questions, really. How robust are they? And at the end of it, then what happens to them for disposal or whatever?
To answer that question, from discussions, they are fiberglass, well spotted. This is an expenditure, hopefully for the summer, so they'll remain in the summer, hopefully for people to enjoy, and they can be put on the app. They'll be as robust as fiberglass is. They will be our property, and as it says in the report, but hopefully if they're treated with respect, they'll be there for another year or longer. But the price is there, which we've agreed, which is £290 each, plus £2,900 in total. So that's the money expenditure. We've agreed on it, and this is as said in the report, we're trying to get people out and get people doing things different. This is something which has been tried, I understand, in other communities, these sculpture trails, and has worked very well. So unless we can find something alternative, concrete or something, we're rather stuck with the report we've got. But I note your concerns.
Well, questions rather than concerns.
Yeah, Town Clerk.
Just in terms of what happens to them, they would belong to the town council afterwards. The report does suggest we could auction them off, presumably for the mayor's charities. We'd have to see how it went and what the feel was at the time. If lots of them were sponsored, then we might need to have a slightly different conversation, but it covers us by saying they'd all return to the town council. Councillor
Margaret Gately.
Thank you. I just a question really. Are the otters prior to being painted or whatever all identical, or are there variations?
I don't know that answer. I should get referred to the committee.
I think they're all the same.
They're all the same. Okay, that's probably it, hence the price. I think we shouldn't make a decision if the committee agree on what we do with them now. I think we should see how successful they are, and at the end, but they are a council asset, and auctioning them off would have to be a council decision, I think. And if whoever's mayor and mayoress at the time would obviously be appreciative of the support, but we may wish to use them in future years for future events to get some value out of them if they all hopefully survive the summer. Councillor Harvey.
There is a second report from Sam, the Lace Hill Sports Coordinator, which goes into some more of the detail about the otters. I'm not sure if members have read that report as well. It is the same thing.
Correct.
That answers some of the questions.
Exactly. Correct. So
I support the idea wholeheartedly. I mean, sculptures are something I think are wonderful, and the more we can do to bring in sculpture into the town, the better it is. And I've got to assume that the structures will be pretty robust. With fiberglass, after all, builds boats.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
They're going to be strong things. So I'm sure they'll be fine.
Yeah.
Councillor Strain-Clark.
If I could just come back, because I'm aware that when we had fiberglass canoes, bits would actually scrape off them, and that you could actually get cut on them and so on. I dare say that what the resin or whatever they're in nowadays is probably a bit tougher than ours were, but so that's the sort of thing I was questioning.
Well, thank you for that. Can I just for the minutes then have a show of hands that we agree this report?
Sorry, Chair, but just be really clear which report we're agreeing, because we're kind of talking about two at the same time.
We're agreeing the total report.
Yeah.
So we're agreeing the list of projects for the bounce back from the events coordinator, and then then after that we're going to agree the public art trail with the otters.
Correct. Yeah. I've given members chance to discuss the report. Now I'm just asking to confirm their support for the report. Those in favour, please.
Yeah, that's unanimous.
That's unanimous. Thank you so much for that. In which case, and the otters will thank us for that. Right, in which case we'll move swiftly on to the Buckingham Fringe, which the events coordinator is going to give us a verbal update. We did meet a small group of us to discuss it, but I'll add in later. But Amanda, please lead off on that.
Okay, like Councillor Stutchbury said, we met 2 or 3 weeks ago to discuss the Fringe Week, and we've come up with various things. We want to try and do as many events outdoors as we can. So this week, the Deputy Town Clerk, myself, and the Town Centre Manager are going to look at some outdoor venues. One of the things that we will be looking at is whether or not we can socially distance an audience and how many we can safely get in. So we're going to go and do that. The Oxford Fiddle Group are interested in coming back, and they will perform indoors or outdoors. They can do both. We're going to try and get a comedy night set up. The UK Astronomy Group are happy to be part of the Fringe Week again. The town centre manager has been looking at open air theatres, so I'll let her fill you in on that one. But there's various things that we're looking at, but we need to sort our venues out first of all, so that we know who can go where. I'm looking at staging, security if we need it. Saw that this week.
I'll hand over to Emma to talk about the outside theatre before we hand over to members, and then I'll talk at the end. Emma.
Yeah, so I've got 3 options for outdoor theatres that I've found. One of them is available on the 20th, which is the Tuesday. One of them on the Monday, and then the third one is available the Saturday or the Friday. They're all very varying in price. One of them, which I think is probably the best one, is willing to do 2 shows on the same day for the same price as one show, so we can socially distance a lot better, because we can put 2 audiences in to whatever venue we decide instead of one, and that would be Alice in Wonderland, and that costs £2,200. The other 2 options are Much Ado About Nothing, or the Lord Chamberlain's Men are doing Macbeth. So they're the 3 options I found. Sorry.
Thank you, Emma. You give us, Councillor Harvey and others were present, and we did have a long discussion about these things, but other members might have a view before I go to the members who attended the meeting on progressing this. Obviously, the report, further details have come back. We agreed to meet again to firm up some of these details. Correct me if I'm wrong. Because obviously the site visits have got to take place, the venues have got to be decided, and the socially distancing of these events. But we are looking forward, not backwards, with this event, and we deeply wish to try and do something positive, I think, for the community in one form or another to protect the Fringe. There was discussions about, and correct me if I'm wrong, there was discussions about the fact that we're going to domain the event, so-called, but that domain name of the event and coordination will be done, I think we probably thought, through the Town Council's website. There'll be a page there so that we can promote this event more widely as time goes forward. If there's anything I've missed there, those councillors who were present in the meeting, please correct me. I take it I've covered it then. I covered it.
Yeah.
Are we happy that we proceed, and we'll meet again nearer the time, and we'll bring back the appropriate information probably to the next events committee? We should be able to firm some of this down. Obviously, we're going to have to allow officers with COVID and that a lot of room to manoeuvre, and then we can hopefully be in a position that the date will be firmed up at a later stage. Councillor Harvey.
Just checking, we're not making a decision tonight as to which one we go for then?
I don't think we're at that stage, John. I think what we want to do is bring back, because we've got questions to ask. I think we can, we haven't got the detail before you in paper. I think before you make a discussion on which theatre group to go with, you really need to see the detail. I think before you make a decision on the site, I think you should see why that decision was taken against the social distancing regulations. And I think this is really an update report, not a decision matter, as we'd have had a full report. Councillor Margaret Gately and Councillor Rabina.
Thank you. Just for information, you haven't actually got the Fringe Week dates on the agenda. Can you just confirm what the proposed dates are?
I can confirm that they're not on the agenda because we may slip it a little bit if we have to, but there's elements around road closure things, and by giving the officers the space, That's why I said the space, because if we were to firm down a date at this point and then do everything, it might limit us. But Amanda may have a different view on that, but I'll take Rabina first.
I just missed the first play, which Emma mentioned. I heard Much Ado About Nothing and Macbeth, but I didn't quite catch the first one.
Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, okay, fantastic.
Which rather fits what the world we've all been down the rabbit hole and back, I think, during COVID. So it's quite appropriate, really, I think. But before we close that off, have you got anything else to say, Amanda?
Okay, the proposed dates that we've got are Saturday the 17th of July to Sunday the 25th of July. But like Robin said, you know, that may shift a little bit.
Come back to I'll come back to Councillor Gately. I see she wanted to comment, or was that just?
Not really. I was just trying to put my thumb up, but I didn't do it terribly
I
well.
apologise. I'm conscious of making sure we.
Well, that is the usual dates.
Yeah, they are. As I said, we're allowing the office and Terry and I will discuss it if there's an issue. I'll be assured. But I think we just want to get it happen, and it will be such a boost for the town to have something to go to. I think we, you know, so I'll be happy with that. We'll definitely keep everyone informed. If there's any decisions that need to be taken, are you happy that Councillor Bloomfield and I make those decisions and we give you a proper update? I don't think there will need to be that. I think we've got the time with us. So with that, I'm happy to move on, which is to
Chair. Just before we move on, and my apologies for losing attention at one point, we did cover item 7.2 as well, didn't we?
7.2, which is public art trail. We've already done that, yeah.
Yes, yeah, we voted on that as well.
We've already done that.
Oh, I thought we only had one vote, but okay.
It's going to be part of the Fringe and the Lay Seal report. It's all included in it. It's just double, because it's going to be part of the Fringe week. It's just included, you know, bounce back and everything's included. It's all pretty much working together.
All right, that's fine. I was just double checking that we'd covered it all. That's fine.
No,
that's
thank you. Always good to do that. Always good to do that. Not a problem. Item 9, summer hanging baskets. Again, we'll hand it over to our able events coordinator to update us on that. I expect it's just choosing the colours.
Yeah.
I'm open to suggestions. The floor is free.
Well,
Councillor Terry Bloomfield.
Well, why don't we normally have yellows and reds and that? Why don't we go with NHS colours?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Which is, well,
rainbow.
Geraldine, what's it? Blue? Is it light blue, red and yellow?
We'll let her unmute.
Oh.
Yes, now.
You're unmuted. Speak.
I would say something as cheerful as possible, brighten everybody up.
Yeah.
I mean, NHS is blue, but you don't want blue.
Well, no, I had a look today. They use yellow, red, white.
Let's have the rainbow colours.
Yeah, yeah.
I think, yeah, just as bright and cheerful as we can.
I see Amanda's got a pen waving in the air, so let's hear what Amanda's got to say on the subject.
Okay, I was going to suggest bright colours, orange, reds, yellows, things like that. But
of course, he may well be limited to what he can grow this year, depending what he can get. So I think it needs a trip out there in the spring, early spring, to see what he can actually do. Flowers wise, not colours wise, but actual flowers.
Yeah.
For the baskets.
Yeah. Okay, so to move this forward, are we agreeing, taking the Vice Chairman's timely advice, that we want bright colours? If the theme of the NHS can be included in it, do so, but leave Amanda to go out and see what plants are available, because making plans here, and if they're not available, we can't have them. No. But cheerful and bright is the important thing. Are members happy with that?
Agreed, yeah.
Agreed.
Amanda.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I usually leave it up to them to choose the plants. They know what goes well in the baskets and the planters. I do throw in a suggestion every now and again of what I'd like. But yeah, I'll do my best and get whatever I can.
And are we agreeing once we've got that, because people need some good news, that once Amanda's got the order in, we'll just do a standard press release to let people know we're going to be decorating the town again this year, so that they know it's coming, and we can leave the office, and if necessary, depending on the timing of that, we'll comment on it. If it's in Purda, clearly the office will comment on it. So we'll agree a press release on that. I think it's a good news story that we're coming back with stuff to decorate the town. Councillor Bloomfield.
Could we also include with that, Chairman, that we're doing the gardens again this year, because people will get out in the spring to put the plants in, and we haven't advertised it yet. So could that be included?
I think you beat total logic there, Councillor. We need to include it in that, just to show that we're trying to get the town in some back to normal and trying to do something positive, as we keep using the term COVID bounce back. Is that agreed? We'll work something up at the appropriate time, and put it out so that members of the public know what the town councillors are doing on their behalf. Okay, in which case we're happy with that. Are we all happy before we move on?
Yeah.
Right, okay, we'll move on to item 10, which is future events, which is basically the first one, which is the community group fundraising day. This is something that the Buckingham Town Council agreed it wished to do. They passed it over to the committee. There's an ample report here. Who's going to lead on that report from the officers? I believe it's probably Amanda again, to lead on that report. Take us through it before we discuss it.
Okay, as it says in the report, it was something that was originally discussed at the Resources Committee and passed to TC&E. We've had a discussion and thought that maybe we could hold the event in the paddock, as it's a nice fenced off area. The event would be contained in there. There's plenty of room for social distancing with the stall holders. We could bring in, ice cream van, bouncy castle if we can at that in June, sorry. I've got a list of all the people that grants have either been given to in the past or have applied for grants. I'm going to contact them and see if they would like a stall so that they can promote themselves, do fundraising if necessary. And then there's other organisations that I'm going to contact as well. And we'll see who comes forward and would like to take part in it. But when you start thinking, there's a lot of organisations out there that I think would be interested.
Can I have comments from the members on the report and their interest or points they wish to raise? Councillor Harvey's first. You're on mute, John. You're on mute, John.
Sorry about that.
You now have authority, John.
Thank you. I thought that when we proposed this event, the purpose of the event was to bring voluntary organisations together in order to inform them of the grant making facilities that we have as a town council, and give them a chance to network with each other and maybe share some insights into volunteering, etc., in the town. It now seems to have morphed into a kind of jamboree involving the public, and that wasn't what I thought this event was all about. So sorry to be a bit of a damp squib on this, and I don't want to, be too critical of the work you put into it, Amanda, but this isn't the event that I thought we were talking about, from my recollection. But maybe I've got the wrong end of the stick.
I'll go to the town clerk and then I'll go back to Amanda.
Yeah, my understanding right from when we talked about it originally was it would be something like this, so it was supporting groups to promote themselves. I mean, the event as we proposed it would facilitate the things you're describing as well, John. So it would enable groups to meet with each other. We would invite groups like Community Impact Bucks to the event, so groups were able to talk to each other, see what each other do at the same time. Obviously, it has morphed a bit with the proposal to merge it with Civic Day as well, because then it becomes a bit of a celebrating all the voluntary groups in the town. But I mean, but either thing are possible. Happy for members to guide us in either direction.
Well, I just go back to Amanda before I comment as ownership of the report. Amanda.
Okay, because I wasn't involved in the original discussion with resources, I wasn't fully aware of how the event was to go. But I agree with what Paul said.
Thank you. I'm sorry for that. Of course, you weren't involved in the discussion at resources. I'll take Councillor Strain-Clark before I comment.
Thank you. I was just going to say, I thought this was a delightful report, and I really hope that this can go ahead because it's something really positive for everybody in the town to look forward to.
Is that a proposal?
I can propose it. Yep, certainly.
Is there a seconder for that proposal apart from me? Councillor Table. In which case, thank you very much for the report. I thank the town clerk for clarity. All the things that are meant to be included are in the report. And the great thing about this, it will grow before it gets to the event anyway, and any additional information will get brought back to us. So with
Chairman,
that,
do we need to take a vote on this because members have got slightly different views?
well, that's why I just said we've had a proposer and a seconder. If you'd allowed me to carry on, I was going to actually bring it to a vote. Town clerk, as I've probably got authority to do that. Maybe move to a vote. We have a proposer and seconder to carry on and accept the report. Is that agreed?
Yeah, that's unanimous.
Thank you. Okie doke. We'll move on again to the next event. I'm trying to apologise for the delay because I'm going from paper to whatever, which is to Steve discuss the written report from the events coordinator on the Lacehill Sports thing. No, I've gone back up now. Sorry, Terry. I've moved back up. It's because I'm moving from digital to paper. We've done Fringe. We've done Summer Basket. Right. It's item 11. I apologise for that. Item 11, which is the Holocaust Day report. I have to. I'll give you a bit of background on this. It was something which was rightfully suggested by Councillor Ruth Mill. It's gone on to our agenda as it's events led. If we agree the report, it would then, as the report indicates, funding would be put into earmarked reserves. The matter regarding the sculpture then would be progressed, time permitting, with the Environment Committee. And the idea is to have a quiet area of reflection and to mark this respectfully, this day, like other Buckinghamshire towns do. And I know from talking to Councillor Neil, there's a huge expression in Milton Keynes and many other towns. People who've been privileged to be mayor will have probably been to other things like this. So I hand it over to you to seek clarity from the town clerk, and I'll chime in at the end.
Thank you, Chairman. So just to point out, this really is a two-part proposal. One part is to hold a Memorial Day each year on the 27th of January, which is Holocaust Memorial Day. And the second part of the proposal is to allocate £1,000 of the additional underspend towards a stone to go in Bourton Park.
Members' views?
I support the recommendations, and we should go with it.
Councillor Bloomfield.
I do as well. My grandmother was Polish and my grandpa was Russian, and they had to flee. And I remember them on the day, so I think it should be there. Yeah,
I'm really pleased about that. So, are we happy to agree the two parts of the report? And at that point, we would earmark reserves, which after discussion with the town clerk today, he wouldn't accept my view. His view is this goes into earmark reserves, and then that will sit there. And of course, time permitting, the Environment Committee will pursue this project as worded in the report. We're happy to, we've had a proposer and a seconder, happy to move on the vote unless there's someone who has a contrary view. I take that we're all in agreement. Councillor Harvey, you're on mute.
Is £1,000 enough? Which, about putting in a memorial, £1,000 is not going to buy very much, from my experience. Is £1,000 enough?
Well,
I think we should be flexible.
It was a figure that I plucked out of the head air, John. If you want to amend the report to a greater sum of money, we do have underspend, but that will have to we'll have to amend the report. And I'm happy for people to amend it in that way. Councillor Mari.
Thank you, Chairman. Should we leave this to the town clerk to make a judgment on what's appropriate and given some flexibility on getting the stone, and once he's got the figures, come back to the committee for just approval?
Well, we could do that, but I think we may take the first point, because we're actually asking town council to agree an earmark reserve under our standing orders. So once we've agreed an earmark reserve, we'd have to go back to the town council to agree additional one, at which point we might have crossed the financial threshold of this year's budget into next year's budget. So we're taking it out of this year's budget into earmark reserves. So if we're going to do any changes, Councillor Meyer, it's better that we give the gravity to the office now. If Councillor Harvey thinks £1,000 is insufficient, maybe come up with a different figure and then pass that to the town clerk to see if he's happy with the figures he's got in his report later in the meeting to accept that, because this was a carefully sort of choreographed matter on finance. So
as long as there's some flexibility built in, that's all I worry about. I mean,
okay, I'll be led by the town clerk, who's our financial officer.
So Robin, does that mean the recommendation becomes that the committee, in terms of D, the town council creates an earmark reserve of £1,000 or an appropriate amount as the town clerk identifies following investigation, which then so a revised amount would go to full council to agree as an earmark reserve? Yeah. So we could do that in the timescale.
You think we're able to do that?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of complications, that this might end up being a new council who progresses this project. They may not have the understanding. I'd rather put double the money in now, £2,000 in now, and try to that's double what we anticipated. And then if there's anything left, it goes back into the council budgets anyway. So are you against that, town clerk? If you are, please say.
Well, I think at the moment we don't know. So what I'm saying is, the timescale wise, as long as we can get the number to next full council, we'll be fine within this cycle.
So are we agreeing through the guidance of the town clerk that he'll put an appropriate figure into the earmark reserves for the town council to agree to progress the project?
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. That both answers Councillor Harvey's concerns and Councillor Murray's suggestion, doesn't it? So we're there really. Can we have a show of hands on this, please?
Yep, that's
Thank
unanimous.
you very much. Thank you very much. I know Councillor Neal will be pleased about this, because it was something that she was really keen to progress, and hopefully that she could progress it for her own committee with Councillor Gately guiding her along, who's present in the meeting. So that's really good. Thank you very much for that. In which case we'll move on to item 12, which is the lighting columns. This is just a matter that we have to do this. Is that correct, Amanda?
No, Chairman, that's been moved to the confidential at the end.
Okay, well that's in there. Well, let's move to confidential. It shouldn't be where it is on my paper agenda then, should it? In which case we'll discuss that in confidential. Item 13 then, which is item 12, according to the agenda and not the paper agenda, because as I said, I'm going from paper to whatever here. So we'll accept that, which is to social media projects. I will pass that over to communications. Which officer is going to lead on that? Are you going to lead on it, Paul?
Yeah, I will. So the paper's been written by the communications clerk. Essentially, we had discussion at CSG about social media and the council and the ability of councillors to kind of influence what goes out on social media. And obviously, we're keen for members to have an oversight of everything that happens, especially in terms of communications. But the difficulty we've hit, especially in recent months, with staff kind of suddenly being available for a few weeks because they're locked out of their normal job, and we're trying to do creative, good stuff, is that it's possible for staff within a couple of weeks to put together an online project, such as some of the wellbeing stuff that you might have seen in the last few days. And it works within staff timescale, but that doesn't work within committee cycle. So it's just not possible, for example, to come to TCE to get permission to run a thing about a virtual pancake race and then wait 7 weeks for the next meeting, because by then Pancake Day will have been and gone. So this is a way of asking you to agree in principle that we can do stuff on social media as long as it fits with the committee's previously agreed policies and priorities. So really it's a suggested approach, and obviously we'll keep members in touch with what we're doing as we go along, but really grateful for members' views, really.
Just before I discussed this with the town clerk today, and those the elements of councillors' input into this. Are the committee happy to take the suggestion that I would like to put, that we allow the office the freedom to coordinate between themselves to do these things, as long as the committee, when it's relevant to the events committee, gets sight of the information that's going out before it goes to the public, so that that nicety is undertaken. And then because seeing it on the public as a councillor is probably, we should see it before it goes out there, not to interfere with it, because there's been an ample lot of work done on it, and we shouldn't second guess it. And this is all in contact with the communication strategy group who are working on these matters anyway, who are town councillors. So it will have a level of governance at some point anyway, just for a nicety that the members get an email saying this is going out at the same time as it's put out on social media. Because if you don't look at it and somebody says to you as a councillor, oh, that's wonderful that we're doing that, and you don't know about it, it could be, it's not how it should be. So are members happy with that suggestion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Councillor Margaret Gately. You're on mute, Margaret.
Yeah, I tried pressing the space bar because that's supposed to unmute, but it didn't seem to work. As long as we're not making things extra hurdles for the staff who are working hard and creatively to jump, I can see the point you're making, Robin, absolutely. But we mustn't put difficulties in people's way.
I honestly, that's Councillor Rabina.
I think the staff should be allowed to just get on with the social media, because social media only works if it's completely up to date and current. So there shouldn't really be any obstructions. It's if the office can email, that's fine. If they can't, I mean, they're working along, various channels I've seen on various social media things. So I don't see a problem with them just getting on with it.
Just that my suggestion with that is that not every council lives on social media, and that way at least they know what's gone out with the committee. It's only a matter of attaching an email that it's gone out to social media. It's not to interfere with the posting of it. It's not to interfere with the work being undertaken. I recognise all the pressures involved in this. It's just one email. I'll go to Councillor Harvey, then Councillor Gately again.
I think so long as the email is basically FYI, I don't think we should be saying, oh, are you sure that's the right thing? Or here's another idea or everything else. No. I think it's just letting us know that this is planned for next week or it happened last week.
Yeah.
But I agree with what Margaret and Rabina are saying. I think, we should just let it happen. I trust our officers impeccably. They're doing some great stuff. Let them get on with it. We don't need to control it all. We just don't.
I'm not suggesting that. Councillor Gately.
I was more or less going to say the same thing as Councillor Harvey's just said.
Oh, well,
there shouldn't be an assumption that if an email goes out informing people of a particular project, that councillors then need to say that's okay. They should just be for information, not with the understanding that councillors say, yes, that's all right by me, because otherwise it would just delay everything.
Councillor Rabin, and I'll come back.
I know you've said this quite a few times today, Councillor Stutchbury, but I think we should just give the office the authority.
Look, you have the authority, and if it's possible to put it, the only reason I Councillor Rabina, I mentioned it is because earlier in the year we had a situation where there was miscommunication between members and stuff because of COVID, and I was just saying it as a nicety. You are the elected members, and that with that comes a privilege. But I definitely don't want to be, with my limited skills, taking any decisions where I recognise the hard work that's gone in it. It can either go out at the same time or post it's gone out. Just so if you're asked in the street about it, you are aware that we have put it out. That's all it's really to do. I don't want members, especially running up to March, when there's going to be lots of things done, have to be done during Purda, that you as members don't know that that's gone out, because we shouldn't influence it politically at that point. So are we happy with that? We're really happy anyway, aren't we? We're just discussing it.
We've agreed that, Robin, Chairman.
So are we agreed on that basis?
Yeah.
And can we record in the minutes, thanks for all the work being undertaken on this. Thanks for the time given to it. And actually, to be frankly honest, it served us very well during this COVID period. The joint working between the officers has been great, and it's kept the council foremost and has kept us alive when we've been unable to do other things. So I think the gratitude should be threefold. Thank you. In which case, with that, we'll move to the paper agenda, hoping that the paper agenda's in line with the online agenda, which is the Buckingham Action Group. Well, obviously, we've had apologies from Councillor O'Donoghue today. We can't progress that, and it's unfair to second guess what she's done. I note Councillor Bloomfield's hand up, but I think we should put this on the next agenda for an update.
Nothing's happening at all on that.
Yeah, and then move it forward that way, and put a note in there in the agenda that Councillor O'Donoghue will update us when her health allows. If there's anything significant, the town clerk and the committee clerk and events coordinator, either one of them will send something to us. So that's how it is, and it will go back through Amanda anyway. So be assured nothing will get forgotten, and some of this stuff is officer led anyway, and we as councillors support the officers. So we are there. Okay.
Hang on, Chair.
Councillor Harvey, I didn't see you down there.
Yeah, if we could use this moment on the agenda just to ask the events coordinator to contact Buckinghamshire Council to find out what exactly is happening with the skate park.
Yeah,
also, that's one of the things that has been discussed often here, and we were promised. There's been some consultations on the design. As far as I know, we've heard nothing more about that, and I think it's in time we put a little pressure on Buckinghamshire Council to say, well, are you going to do it soon? Let's get this thing sorted for when the sun starts shining come the spring for the kids to have some fun to play on.
Well, I'll answer that before Amanda. As I am a Buckinghamshire councillor, I can assure you, in all my communications with the cabinet member, he's 100% behind this project. He actually wants to get it done as soon as possible. I take him at his word that he wishes to progress this. Obviously, both Councillor Donoghue, myself, and your good self met them down at the skate park. We had a discussion with it, and we wrote to the cabinet member and the committee pursued it. Now he has come back with a scale and consultation. We don't own the land, Buckinghamshire Council do, but I think it's reasonable to ask the committee events coordinator to write to him seeking a update and a partner's update on the date of delivery. I think that's a reasonable suggestion. Amanda.
Yeah, I think I'll also ask him if we can have a look at the design that's been chosen. So we know what's coming.
Yeah. Can I, through the town clerk, if that design comes back in the time frame, not for this committee, but for any other committee, that being resources or the town council, that design goes on the environment agenda if it's appropriate. Or I know we started it, but just so councillors get to comment on that design. It doesn't have to be. As many of us serve on many committees, and if it's really important, it will go to the full council anyway. But I'm not anticipating anything there. As I say, in his correspondence to me, which I've kept, he's assured me that he wants to get this done. And I must say that from my own point of view, and I think anyone who was involved in this will recognise this is a long-standing promise to Buckingham youth, and actually is a generational promise, because it was never delivered in a time fashion which the children now who once wanted this have probably now got children of their own. So I think that is all there, and I think we'll get that done. So you know, I will write to him myself anyway, John, just to have an update separate. But are we happy with that? You know? And if the town council has it, if we can't, just so it's spoke about and talked about, it's not about us, it's about the community. Are we happy with that? Okay, I take it we are.
Yes.
Yep.
Right, in which case we'll move on to item 15, which is to review last year's budget figures. Is there anything, Sean's, out of those that members wish to comment on? Noting that we've took some decisions tonight to take more money out of those figures. Okay, I take that. I'll give members a minute. If that's okay, we'll move on to item 5.2.
I've got one item.
Okay, that's why I said to give you a minute, John. Fire away.
Okay. Yeah, I've been through it. I've just underlined something. Page 2, whatever page 2 it is, for the food fair, we've spent some money, and I wondered why, because we've not had a food fair, have we? Or have I got that wrong?
I'll go to Amanda.
Yeah, I think that is the amount that we were paying for the hall hire for the community centre. So I just need to check with Councillor Collins as to whether that was actually paid or not, or whether it's just there as committed.
Okay, I mean, presumably we're not going to be paying for it anymore because we've got to cancel it. Okay, all right, that's fine.
No,
thank you.
Yeah.
Well, John, it's not quite like that, is it? If we have a commitment and book something and we cancel it, it's not us who, you know, we have that. I think we leave that for the town clerk and the events coordinator to sort out and give you a proper answer, because I don't think it's right to ask Councillor Collins to comment on this in the meeting now with her position in the community centre. That's unfair, and I think we'll just get a note sent back to you what it is. I think, John, properly. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I presume that the centre's going to carry on being used as a vaccination clinic in any case, and
yeah,
we'd have had a struggle anyway.
My reason for saying what I'm saying is I know that the community centre is making a huge contribution to the community, and I know second hand, not first hand, that they're probably taking quite a financial hit on that. So I'll leave the town clerk and the committee clerk to have that discussion about how we're not going to go bankrupt if that money ends up going to the community centres, but I'll leave them to make that decision, not now tonight, because it's not really on the agenda, and it's unfair to bounce Councillor Collins in her other position to comment on that. Is that okay?
I'm not asking for that. I'm simply saying I assume that if we book somewhere and we give sufficient notice, we don't end up paying for it. But if the contract is that we pay for it anyway, that's obviously fine with me. I don't mind.
No, that's where I'm coming from.
And I do hope the community centre are getting proper recompense for being used as a vaccination clinic. Why shouldn't they be? They should be.
I agree. Let's move on to 5.2, which where I wasn't, which I think the town clerk's got one comment to make on that.
Yeah, thank you. The chairman's quite helpfully pointed out that the cover report on 5.2 says overspend when it should say underspend. So to confirm that there is an underspend on the overall budget, not an overspend.
Yeah, I spotted that too.
In which case, the report makes much easier reading, doesn't it? Are we happy to note that report on that basis?
Yep.
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 And 5.3 is to really just to note, because we've already agreed those figures.
Yeah.
And that, anyway, there's nothing to comment on those because they're forecast figures for next year. Are we happy to note those?
Yeah. Noted.
Thank you. Thank you. Item 16 then, business plan, but either draft business approval,
No,
draft
that's
business.
Rob. That's not on the
Sorry.
agenda, Robin.
It's not.
No.
So the paper agenda doesn't fit the online agenda. I really apologize. I mean, I'll have to go to the online agenda. Just give me a minute. I'm going to load that back up here. I'm working on paper, and yours is different here. Right. So
I was working on paper, Rob, and you're right, it's there.
Yeah.
you know, it's not very useful for me as a chairman to have two things running. I can make enough mistakes without that. Thank you. So we've got to item 16, which is to receive and discuss a verbal update from the town centre manager, which we thanked her in a role earlier, Emma. It's not. It's different on the paper agenda. So. Far away.
Yes, so since I took on the role, I've had my first coaching session with the town centre manager at Princess Risborough to find out what she does and her ideas, which was really helpful. She has loads of ideas and she's been very successful with increasing footfall in her town. So I'm hoping that will correspond to Buckingham. The first thing I've done is created a health questionnaire for all businesses in Buckingham. So that's going to go out this week. I understand that businesses are either closed or very busy at the moment. So once we're reopened, I will go around and do the quiz questionnaire with the businesses because I don't think they will have much time to respond to me at the moment, but we'll see if they can. We've been looking at summer entertainment for the town centre. So in the market, every Saturday in the summer, we've been looking at entertainment that can go on there to bring people into the town. I've been working a lot on the website. I've got lots of projects that will go live once the town centre is reopened that I've been working on, such as blog posts and new features like itineraries for days out in Buckingham and around the area. Yeah, that's about it. The All Wrapped Up campaign. We've still got the raffle on the back burner to do once the town centre reopens, but obviously it's all closed at the moment.
Thank you very much. Members? I take it that we're all content.
Very.
Please. Well, can we record in the minutes again? Thank you for your first report to committee. And I know that it's early days and we have every faith that you're going to bring back some wonderful initiatives to us. And this year is going to be a very important role, I think we can agree, for the town centre manager, because she's going to be the community's friend as we try and work our way out of COVID. So, and she'll have a big role liaising with Buckinghamshire Council and everybody else and whatever. And it's a big role this year, and we must give you the space to move and grow into it. Thank you. In which case, I know I've gone back to the electronic agenda, which is slightly different to my paper agenda, which is to receive the 6.2, which is to receive the visitor statistics. Obviously, they're obvious what they are and why. I don't think we need to comment on those. They're down clearly because it's closed. In which case, if members are happy, I'll move on to 6.3, which is the Town Centre Design Working Group. Design a report, the Town Centre, Town Clerk. I think you need to give you an expression about what this is, because this isn't something that it's something that started on social media, I believe, went round having a discussion on social media, which from what I could see was a bit Marmite. But how we progress this to a conclusion is where we need to go. Town Clerk.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So there have been lots of discussions around the town centre, partly coming out of the first lockdown around whether we should pedestrianise a bit, what would be better or worse, along with conversations about the design. So not just around pedestrianisation, but other things that may or may not be done. So the economic subgroup and COVID recovery subgroup of the community board are suggesting to set up a working group which would consist of Buckinghamshire councillors and town councillors, possibly the Buckingham Society as well. Now, the point of that working group is, there's lots of stages. The point of that working group would just be to agree a scope of work to then go out and tender for some designers to put some proposals in, to choose a designer to come up with some options. And then once you come up with the options, then there'd be consultation and then consideration about whether community board funds could be used for some kind of piece of work in the town centre. So this proposal isn't to discuss what might be done. It's just to agree for the town council to put a representative on a working group to talk about what the scope of work might be. I know that kind of feels like it's several stages back, but so it's not about what exactly should or shouldn't be done. It's just about should the town council be involved in that discussion, really.
Thank you, Town Clerk. Having noticed the discussion and where it is, I'll come to Councillor Harvey in a moment. One of the obvious that stared out to me that the simplest way to find out what the town actually thinks about a town centre being pedestrianised is actually try it period first before you start investing in hard design and investing in costs for doing something and whatever. So I think one of the suggestions I'd make to them is that if this is something they wish to pursue, we work with them because it's their ownership of their project in cooperation with us in facilitating a road closure order for some time, just as if that's what they wish to do, to actually allow the public to see what the town looks like and how it works, where it is closed, so that the best way to consult about something is people see what it would look like. All the other things thereafter, if it's positively received and gets community support, can progress. I am minded, though, historically, the last time the town was reorganised and we ended up with the area outside Jardines, we ended up with the area outside the old jail, we ended up with the area outside the cattle market with the tombstones, which limits your allowability to use that space. How careful you have to do. Well, I say that, I noticed Councillor Gatty squinting, because when the fair comes into the town, that affects the ability of the showman to use space appropriately. And Councillor Mari and I have been down there many a times, and that does have it. So when these considerations have to be considered, I think it's important that we feed in the fact that we run a market, we feed in the fact that the fair ground will come into the town. And what we can realise, because over the years we've evolved the town centre with consultation, taking things out to make more space. If it is going to change, my view is that, as I said earlier, is that we should look at doing a road closure order for a week or 2 weeks to allow the public to discuss what it's like. And if they think it's a fantastic idea after that period, I think then it's obvious the public are supporting it, and then all the hard spending on the money can come afterwards, because anyone can draw up a design to change the town centre, but we in Buckingham will have to live with it for perpetuity. So it's important, if it's done, it's with the complete consent of the community, and it's something they actually really desperately want. That's my view on it. I take Councillor Harvey before I take Councillor Mari.
I guess my answer is, how could the town council not be involved in discussions about the future of the town? So obviously we need to send someone along to the discussion. I'm just a little bit curious as to why we haven't been formally invited by anyone. I suppose that I was expecting, if this is a Buckinghamshire Council initiative, why didn't Buckinghamshire Council write to us, I suppose, and saying, we're thinking of doing this, would you like to be involved? But obviously, if we're talking at the design of the town centre, yeah, of course we should be involved.
Thank you. Councillor Mari.
Not only that the council should be involved, we should also involve all the stakeholders, the shops, the chemists or the pharmacists who are going to be impacted, for people who just pop into the chemist or the pharmacies to pick up a prescription, and they're only there for 5 or 10 minutes. Now, if they have to go and pay and then walk across, that increases the cost of the prescription by the extra 50p, which I think is unfair.
I think that's part of the consultation, Councillor Murray. Would you not agree?
Yes.
But I see the town clerk raise his hand and then put it down again. Has he got something other to say?
Yeah, no, I was giving way to Councillor Mahi. Yeah, just in terms of how we got to this item. So the working group, the community board subgroup working group that I referred to, I attend that, as does Councillor Smith on behalf of the town council. So it was discussed and agreed during that working group to invite the town council, and I said that I would therefore forward it on. So we haven't got that in writing, and those minutes, those meetings aren't minuted, but I'm sure Buckinghamshire Council would argue that that's a kind of formal way of inviting the town council to be involved.
The same as recognising town councillors in public meetings, yeah. The formal way of recognising. Can I make a proposal, if members happy to agree it, that we write to them and offer them the opportunity of them facilitating a road closure order to allow the community to see what this actually looks like? Because if we find out after we've took a decision to close it off, it doesn't work, we've got all the concrete and bollards and brick paving and everything there. I think that's the best way of consulting, is see something live on the ground and have a proper debate. Does anyone object to that? Councillor Margaret Gately.
Yeah, I have to say I'm not convinced about that, because I think for it to work, it has to go, be done properly. And I think if we just put a road closure in and call that a pedestrianisation as an experiment, I think it could go badly wrong. I think I'm not somebody who finds it easy to visualise what something on paper would look like, I have to say, but I'm not at all convinced about doing it prior to a proper design being worked out.
Okay, Councillor Strain-Clark and Councillor Rabina Hamid.
Well, have you seen it?
I was just going to say, yeah, because we all know about, when you have the fair in the town, and we know that any pedestrianisation you do to the town centre has a knock-on effect, not only to shops, but to people living in Western Avenue and wherever the traffic's going to go. So, we all know that, but I don't know how much Buckinghamshire Council will know that. So we do really need to be on there, because we have all this experience, so we know what happens to traffic as soon as you cut off the town centre.
Good point. Good point. Also, disability access. Councillor Rabina Ahmed.
Well, I quite like the idea of having like a trial run of, closing off the roads and so on. But I would, rather than how it's done over the fair, I always think back to when we have the Christmas parade and how everything's, the roads are closed off that way. And for me, that works slightly better because it's a slightly bigger area as well. So you don't get so incredibly close, like some of the issues you have with some of the roads with the parking. It's still slightly further out. So I would propose a slightly bigger area.
Yeah.
Close off. And
I think, until corrected, the area they're talking about is the area of the market.
Right.
And I believe that's to be till corrected. If they're thinking of making more pedestrian, I think the entire community of Page Hill, Western Avenue, Linden Village and whatever will be interested in it, because traffic will rat run in different directions. So I think, are you happy that we put into the discussions that we would consider at some point in putting a road closure order on the area that they wish to have as as a pedestrian area, so that we can actually see what it looks like, because once it's all concreted over, that's too late. And we feed in as much information as Councillor Strain-Clark said about the events that take place in the town, through the events coordinator who's got that, or give them all that information so that they've got it on paper form, what goes on in the town already, the fact that we organise 2 major music events in that area of the town, and if they did something that made that impossible, that's another thing to do, so that they've got all the information in front of them. My only view is that I'm always wary to, before I come back to the mayor, I'm wary that we did this consultation once before in the days of the Buckingham plan, and the same people who are discussing it now discussed it in the Buckingham plan, bar a few individuals. It went out to consultation. It was a Marmite issue. I think it came back almost 50% for and 50% against. But it's only right that in a democracy people can look again. But I'm worried about putting bricks in the ground before we know how it works. Councillor Geraldine Collins.
Well, like Margaret, I'm worried about the impact on Western Avenue, because we know everything goes up there as soon as the town centre's closed off. If they did any practice thing of closing it off, obviously they'd have to leave it open for deliveries and things like that. You couldn't close it off completely and not have the shops having their deliveries and ambulance route and things like that. So we'd have to build that in as well.
Okay, I'll go. I think you raised good points. We'll go to the events coordinator now, Amanda.
Yeah, I think Geraldine has a point. We would also need to look at the impact on places like Nelson Street, Castle Street, School Lane, and places like that, because people will cut through there. And I know that for the Christmas parade that we use that as our one-way system, but that's only for what, 2 or 3 hours during the day. I don't think like Castle Street and especially School Lane could take traffic day in, day out. So I think there's quite a lot that would have to be looked into.
Thank you. Because we don't own the highway, and it's owned by Buckinghamshire Council. We lease the space through road closure orders, and we organise all the community events in Buckingham. I don't know of many that Buckinghamshire Council do. Hopefully they're going to take on and give us lots of money in the future to organise community events. But that was never the case under Buckinghamshire Council or Owsbury Vale District Council. So I hold my breath on that. But I will say, ask through the town clerk, that we do a bit of intelligence on this, in the fact we seek out the consultation work which was undertaken from the community Buckingham plan, because that's evidence which was gathered, which they should see when they're making their decisions. Evidence in making decisions is key. We feed in a list of events that we use the space with all the appropriate issues that we experience with those events, so they know what it's like. But if they are talking about the area of the market, which closed off 2 days a week anyway, when we run a market there through a charter market, of course, if they, I presume they're not in any way discussing about affecting that market, because that's under a charter market on an area that goes back. We need to make them aware of the legalities of that, because I'm not sure the Buckinghamshire councillors will know that, because that was given to us on the back of an envelope. We got when we took the markets over, on the other side of the contract, I understand, was the charter fair. So I think that we need to make them aware of all that, and if we are agreed, offer them the opportunity or suggestion that of a trial period. But we're not going to be leading on this. We're going to be consultees on this. But I am drawn to John's point, which was a good point. Why wouldn't you involve Buckingham Town Council in something that is going to affect Buckingham Town Council forevermore? So are we happy to take those suggestions forward to them, and then ask them to come back to us at a future meeting with an update on how they wish to progress it, so we can publicly question them about their ambitions in a democratic and helpful way. Is that okay? Is that reasonable? I'll go to the town clerk. He's waving again.
Yeah, just highlighting the second recommendation about nominating representatives to take part.
I think because at the moment, I think the representatives on that really, who speaks for Buckingham, it really should be the Mayor of Buckingham should be on that. I think because they represent us, the town council, for Buckingham, and I think maybe the vice chair or chair of this committee should be on there because we're talking about the town centre and we have an obligation to the committee. So I would suggest that those three names are put forward, and if nobody can attend, another member of this committee is very capable of representing us. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Because the mayor is our mayor, and she has to look at everything, the whole of the town, you know. So is that happy for suggestions that we suggest to them?
Yeah.
And also, can they, when they have the date of the meeting and the agendas for the meeting, can we please ask for those agendas so that the committee here can see that agenda in advance, so that if there's anything they wish to prime our attendees to there, they can actually make them aware of their views, so we represent people when we go there and not just represent our own views or prejudices. I think it's important in this stage. It may go somewhere, it may not, but are we agreed the town clerk will sort out that information from the Buckingham plan consultation, and all that has to be fed in. I will remember everything I've said, so I always do. So I just want to get to the point that we're not inhibiting this, we're assisting it, but in the end, it's Buckingham's choice how Buckingham lives, not our choice. And if Buckingham doesn't want it, or Buckingham wants it, Buckingham should have it, you know, or not have it, either way. Okay, right. Thank you for that. I think that was useful. Which case on the electronic agenda, I'll move on to. I'm just joking, town clerk. Now, don't. On the electronic agenda, we'll move on to news releases. We agreed one earlier. Councillor Gately.
Yeah, you seem to have skipped over item 15, access.
Yep. That's one
I did. You're absolutely right. It's on the. You're absolutely right. I do apologise. Let's go back to item 15. Access for all. Councillor Christian Strain-Clark.
Well, I think we're all to consider whether we want another Access Awareness Day. I certainly think it's a really good idea. But whether it's a good idea to draft a plan now when really nobody is around in the town, I don't know.
Your thinking's pretty in line with mine. I posted something on my own page the other day, John from Access for All, talking to all the brave troops before we went out and did the last Access Awareness Day, and where he said, I think his words were, we'll go out there and find out what's wrong, and hopefully the town council are going to ask them who are in charge to correct it, or words to that effect was I think what he said. And it was a good expression of where we are. I think we do need an Access Awareness Day. Also, it works very well with where we're going. So can we agree as a committee that we will look at organising Access Awareness Day at the first possible opportunity? Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I apologise for skipping over that to you and Councillor Strain-Clark, because I'm whipping from one to another, and that line is now already wore out, isn't it? It's been well used. Right, thank you. Which brings us to where I think we are, once I switched this iPad back on again, which is news releases, and which I believe we had agreed that there would be that news release going out on the town centre manager. Can we agree that with Emma's consent that she has, if it's not, I hope she has an input into that, but I think it'd be worth Emma's photograph being included in that so that we can identify who Emma is as the town centre manager. I think that's important because she's our representative, and I'm sure the events coordinator and everyone's worked on that press release. I've put a few words forward. I asked for a few words from Councillor Smith because it went through this committee and resources, and that press release should go out this week. I think that's important. I also think we had a discussion about a press release going out at the appropriate time on something earlier. And may I suggest that we put once we're in a position to firm down some times and some dates around the fringe and the COVID bounce back stuff, that Councillor Bloomfield and myself with officers work out a press release to show that we are trying to go forward. We are looking optimistic and our hopes for the fringe. Is that agreed? Any members got anything they wish to say about the fringe, their feelings, drop them in, because this is about the town council, what it wants to do and what we're trying to achieve. So are you happy with that? And we'll get those press releases done up sort of and timed and dated for the fringe, because that's a big move. We've got to start to open up our community and we've got to start to meet each other again, really, isn't it? In a safe way. I know our discussions with Claire and everyone, that all happened safely. So is that all right? In which case, if that's agreed, is that agreed?
Yeah, agree.
In which case, we'll move on to chairman's items. And I have none really, because that was the press releases. Only to say thank you for the continuous work done in the office, and I also think we ought to note Russell's work in the market during COVID, and how he's keeping that going as well. You know, just as a point, whenever you're down there, he's doing it, and we're keeping those stores open. And hopefully soon we can reopen it in its entirety. In which case, date and time of the next meeting will be on April the 12th.
Did we not have a confidential item to do?
Yeah, that's after this.
I have to
that's
do,
after. Okay.
I have to do. I'm doing the agenda as per se.
I thought you were going to say
we have to close it. No, I weren't. If you'd allowed me to, you do what the town clerk did earlier. Tried to chair the meeting. You chair your meeting, I'll chair mine, eh? You know, that's if we do it like that, where we won't confuse each other. Although I just admit, I sometimes die and chair your meeting. You tell me to be quiet. So, in which case we'll move on to time and date of the next meeting, which is April the 12th, 2021, and item 20 is confidential session. And we'll close this